Hi, everybody. We're going to give everybody a few minutes to join. We got a lot of folks coming in. My name's Nichols Condon, and I am a customer success manager for Blackbaud. And with me today is Alex Wong. Alex, our speaker, our presenter, and Alex is going to go through a little bit about Power BI, dynamic column naming and display selections. And if you like what you see, Alex actually has 3 other sessions in B Dev days. He's got one tomorrow and 2 on Thursday, and I'll put those in the chat as well. Alex, do you want to tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Okay. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So hi, everyone. My name is Alex Wong, and I'm from FIDF as the Senior Director of Business Information System there, overseeing all technologies, including Razor's Edge and automations and infrastructure network and all of that stuff, which give me some edge so I can make certain decisions on data and automation. So that's great. All right, so without further ado, we're going to just quickly get started. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay, so let me know if you're okay. It seems like you are. Okay, let's get started. So I don't have a whole lot of slides, so don't worry about trying to get anything out of those slides. It's just to keep me on the agenda, so to speak. So going into what we're going to talk about, which basically is the topic here, using Power BI for dynamic column naming and displaying selections. So this is our objective. Basically, it's going to involve around table visualization that allows us to display a lot more details rather than just summary data. We'll have summary data, but it's not like a pie chart or a bar chart, things like that. We're talking about actual information that sometimes people may want to export out and do something with it. So, for example, so dynamic to make it so that some of these columns can be dynamically changing. So, for example, year. So we will want to have information like 2024 giving, 2023 giving, things like that, instead of like having to manually change the column label at times, which Power BI does allow you to do. However, when 12/31 goes into 1/1, end of year to beginning of the year, we want to make it so that it does not require us to go in and update those columns. And how we're going to do that, we're going to show here as a demo. We're also going to talk about a little, in this same session, we're going to talk about how we can do dynamic column selections by user. So a Power BI that has been published, configured. When user go to these Power BI that's published it, they'll be able to make their own column selections. How are we going to do that? So instead of like 20 columns, maybe they only wanted to see 5 columns. They can do that on their own without worrying about like the developer of the BI to make changes for them. So without further ado, we're going to get started, but quickly one note. As the saying goes, all roads needs to roam. Especially true with Power BI. There's always more than one way to achieve a goal, and this what I'm going to show you is just one of them. And this session is more or less a demo session, so I'm going to be doing the things along here, and you can ask questions as you go. And when I see them or when it tells me about them, I'll try to answer them, and then we'll go from there. So that's the slide. I'm going to stop sharing, and then we're going to go right into Power BI. Okay, so now we're in Power BI. So I have loaded in some sample data. So obviously from Razor's Edge NXT perspective, we're always talking about constituent records, GIF records, and various information about constituent and GIF. So we're going to go into specifically that. So let's go into the table and take a quick look at it. So we got some constituent table of information, records ID, first name, last name, email, phone, date of birth, stuff like that. It could have a lot more. I just don't want to go into too much data here. And then we also have the gift information, which is pretty simple. I'm not also getting into too much details here for this demo purposes. So we simply have like gift ID, the amount, the constituent that relates to, the dates of the gift, gift types, as well as another column, which is a calculated column within Power Query, which is saying, is it a cash gift or not? So pledge, that's the differentiator really is pledge is not a cash gift. Cash is donation, pay cash, payments, stock property. Those are considered cash gifts. So just to use that as a way to tell what gift is what. So if we go, I also loaded into here some other tables, but we're probably not going to touch on it. But if we do, we will. But this is installment table as well as a payment table. So this is related to pledges. So it has a pledge ID along with the installment ID, installment date, installment amount. And then we have gift payment information such as the payment date. The payment date. Some of the information is not loaded right now, so I may not go into payment, but installment, if we get time, we'll go into it, but otherwise, not really. So let's jump to a little bit on the configuration here. So we are pretty, so we are clear on what's there. So again, constituent and the gift, we have one relationship between the records ID and the constituent ID. And then this is this should have been a one-to-many relationship. I'm not sure what happened to the data after I updated it, but let's change it back to one-to-many. Something messed up in my data there, but I'm not going to worry about it right now because what I'm about to show in this particular session, we doesn't have that too much of that concern here. Hopefully it's not going to mess with my actually, you know what, let me fix that real quick. It may mess with my measures in Power Automate. So let me just get that information in. I'm just gonna do a quick where did it's taking a little long time. You know what? If I hit a problem, then I'll deal with it. So obviously with Power BI, those of you that have worked with Power BI, you might have heard a lot about a date table. So we have a pretty simple date table here, a couple of information like date, month, year. We're not going to deal too much about them, but this is pretty simple. Of course, we relate the dates to the gift date. We also have two inactive dates relationship here relating to the installment dates to the dates table is inactive. We can make use of the use relationship DAX, but I'm not going to get into it if I don't have the time. But in its most basic form, constituent table, gift table, and a date table. Let's not worry about the others for now. So here, let's talk about the problem statement for a quick second. So we have a constituent situation where we have records IDs. I'm going to delete this here. So a lot of time when we are looking at a, say, donor report, we run into a situation where our fundraiser and executive may want to see actual donor detail information and information such as, so a lot of time what we will do is we'll have a table visualization where we put in some information such as like the records ID, first name, last name, and we may do email address and various other pieces of information so that you can see that it's a list, a table that can be then exported to Excel for whatever usage. So assuming if we have like address information, this could become a mailing list situation or a email list situation that can be exported and used in any other tool such as like a constant contact and things like that. However, we might get into a situation we want more details about these people, such as how much have they given. So from a perspective of using a date table, we can have measure that say giving information, such as cash giving. So there's a measure here where we do a the sum of the gift amounts, and we're filtering on cash. So this is specifically named as cash giving, right? We're only looking at cash gift, and this is what we have. So if we were to put this into the table, we will see the amount of givings, cash giving by these individual people. By the way, these are all sample data if I haven't mentioned already. So these are all okay to show, not a PII problem. So when we put this in here, we could have a little filter on the dates that say, okay, I want cash giving in 2022 to 2025, or 2020 to 2022, or we can put in date, month, and then the cash giving will be measure will be calculated against that date range. However, there may come a time where it always happens, that they want to see, okay, I want to see the amount of giving by these people for 2024, 2023, 2022, in the past 4 years, for example. And that becomes a little harder to deal with in this particular scenario. So for example, we could do, these are things that you might already know about, but let's go through them as well as we continue here. You could do a matrix, and then you could put in some information on the rows. We want the constituent ID, for example. Records ID, constituent ID, I'm not going to talk about the difference right now, but basically you could do that. And then you could put, for example, the year in the column, and then I can put in the cash giving in the values, which now it's going to tell me, okay, for this person, he gave 2021, $3,000, 2022, 15,000. I can expand on this, and then it will give me various different years of giving, 21, 22, 23, 24. Great. However, there's a problem with that, right? So what are the problems? If I come back to this matrix, I only have a records ID. So I could try to put in a first name, last name, for example, but this is only 2 of the information. There could be more. But the problem here is that because of the way matrix work, it's kind of like it doesn't show the way that you want it to show, like a first name column, a last name column. Yes, I'm not going to talk about it, but there is a way where you can kind of make the matrix collapse into one row, and it will show it that way. But in this here, I'm not going to go into that particular scenario because I want to get it into a table format. There's a reason why it works better in the table format to look at sometimes. So I'm not going to get into that right now, but what we want to do is ultimately get this, right? We have the IID, the first name, last name, and any other information. It could be email, it could be addresses, it could be phone number, and then we have individual columns of the giving information for each. So in that scenario, what we could do here is we could create new measures for the constituent. Again, measure is on the global scale. It means it's for the whole Power BI. So it really doesn't matter where you actually store the better measures. However, it doesn't matter where you store the measures. However, I'm just going to choose where I store the measure in the most sensible place. So in this case, I want to get giving information for constituents. So I'm going to go ahead and create new measures. And for example, I could say this year cash, and that is calculating the cash giving some of the gift amounts, and we're going to do filter by the gift table such that it is a cash gift, and it is sorry, 1 second, cash gift, and that the year of the gift date is this year. So we can do something like the year of today, and that will give us the cash gift of this year. So this starts to now talk about how can we do dynamic column, because right now I'm only talking about this year giving. This is calculated as this year, So if I put this over here in the table at the bottom, hold on. All right, so all right, this is somehow maybe my thing is not quite working the way I want it to. So let me just simplify this and see if it's still the problem with the many-to-many relationship. So I'm not caring about is cash or not for now. Yep, I'm gonna have to fix that multi-to. All right, so all right. I don't know if my connection will allow me to update that right now, though I have a lot of data in here, sample data. But I think the point that I'm trying to make here should still be able to show once I start making a few more of these so you can see. So basically what you'll have to calculation here is saying that, hey, I'm only looking at this year cash giving, however you do the filtering for it, and then you get a measure for this year's give. However, when you actually put this in, you can see that the column header actually say TY cash, which is the name I give it to the measure. So if I were to say I'm going to do a new measure that is the others, for example, this year -1, that means last year's give. And if I put that in here as well, again, the column header is going to say TY cash, TY -1 cash. So the way that we can make this a more dynamic and then still be able to show which year of giving it is, what you do is you go to the modeling and go into the field parameters modeling, where you'll be able to do something like this. So we're going to do field, and the parameters, we're going to call it dynamic column. For example, we can call it anything you want. However, we're going to go ahead and put in what we're trying to make dynamic of. Now, I'm not going to add the slices to the page yet, but again, for example, we can do a lot more this year, last year, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, but I'm just going to use 2 as an example. So once you have this created, it still needs a little more configurations. So if you actually go to the dynamic column on the right here, this is the name of the column. This is what it's referencing, the second piece. And then finally is the order of the column. I'm not going to worry about the order for now, but what I want to worry about is this part, which is the name of the column. So I'm just going to do a little work here to make the name of the column more dynamic. So we can do year, today, and then same thing here. We're going to change this to year of today -1 because that's what we want. So now, once we have this configured, I'm going to remove these 2 measures directly that's put in here, and now put in the dynamic columns. And now you can see, even though there's a problem with my data model right now in regard to the relationship, but you can see that the column is now 2024, 2023 cash instead of TY cash and TY -1 cash, which our executive and fundraiser is not going to like, right? We want them to see the actual year. So when the year actually flip over from 12/31/2024 to 1/1/2025, TY, which is this one, is going to be 2025 cash, and this one is going to be 2024 cash, so on and so forth. So this is what this is the method I found very much easier to use to allow us to dynamically measure. You can also do this with columns. It doesn't have to be measures, but it could be also columns, where then you'll be able to give it a more dynamic name that you can put. So that's how you can do dynamic column naming, and it's going to be mostly around like these columns that have like yearly value. Maybe it's fiscal year. It doesn't have to be an annual year, but I'm not going to go into the fiscal year right now. So the second part that I'm going to talk about is dynamic column naming. So coming back to my dynamic column, I'm going to go ahead and do a new field parameters for another, and this here I want to call it dynamic column selection, let's say. Okay, so here what we can do is we can put various different field into the this here, just like what we did with the giving. And then we can put, say, for example, I'm going to put first name in here, last name, phone, gender, birthday, email. Okay. And I'm going to add a slicer to this page. Although you don't, if you didn't check this box, you can do it later anyway. So basically, once you create this, in here, I'm going to remove this so we can start seeing some values again. So here, what we can do now is if we were to add this dynamic column selection here into our table, okay, well, it created its own table. Let me delete that. I want to put it in here. Okay, and I'm going to get rid of all these other columns now. So what's going to happen here is you can see my table already have all these columns. Obviously, I only put in my
Alex?
Yes.
They're saying that they can't see the pop-up if there's one still.
Oh, there's no pop-up now. It's just the Power BI. Mm-hmm. There's no pop-up.
And also, is there a place to find other videos by you that would show things like using fiscal year instead of annual year? There
are a lot of There are a lot of community posts around, and also a lot of sharing by other community member on Blackbaud community that talks about fiscal year. So not directly from me, but there are plenty of others that have done fiscal year before. It has a lot to do with how you actually code your dates table, and there are a lot of examples of date table with fiscal year in mind. So I encourage you to go to Blackbaud community, and then you can search up for information regarding dates table for fiscal year. I think I know what you're talking about. Maybe the pop-up for the field selection is not showing. Yep, that's the problem. Okay, I'm going to unshare and reshare my screen this time and share the whole window. It seems like it's not showing pop-up, so I'm going to try to redemo the part where I was using something in the pop-up. So 1 second. Let me reshare. I'm going to the entire screen. Okay, so that should do it. So 1 second. So now let's come back to what I was doing. I'm going to go ahead and delete the two dynamic situation that I created. Removed. So basically, let's come back to here again. I'm going to delete that. All right. So when you go to modeling under new parameters for field, this is where you can do. This is where we did the dynamic column naming. That's the start of it. So when we were doing dynamic column naming, basically when we're here, we just call this like dynamic column, and then you select the measures that you want to have dynamic column on. Actually, it's in here. So TY cache, you just drag it in or just checkbox. And I'm working with these two. So TY cache -1 cache. And then we move the slicer for now. And once it's created, now this part you saw, because I think this part was being screen shared. This is where you can go in, update the TY to a dynamically generated 2024 with the year of today, as well as dynamically generate TY -1, which is the year of today, -1, and then so on and so forth. So I'm not going to go back into that again because we showed that and you were able to see that, I believe. Now let's come back to what we were doing, which is basically creating a selectable situation, a dynamically selectable situation for user of your Power BI. Same thing, you go into new parameter fields, and I'm going to call this dynamic column selection. Okay. And I'm going to add in information such as, okay, first name, I want that to come first. My last name, phone, email, date of birth, sex. Yeah, let's do that. Actually, I could add in these two as well, but I'm not going to do that now. Create that. So now you're on the data panel here. You can see there's the dynamic column selection. Okay, and we have added it to the slicer. Now I'm going to delete that, but you don't have to use it. So you could just say it's not anything different than the normal slicer. And then you put dynamic column, dynamic column selection in there. It's the same thing. Okay, so we're gonna play with this a little bit. Let's make this a little smaller. Okay, so a little change here. I want to make sure that I am able to select multiple, but without using the control. I don't want to have to hold down the control key. People can easily just check off what they want, right? So going from there. So now if I go to my table visualization and put in my dynamic column selection in here, is always showing all of them. So this is how Power BI works a little bit. When nothing is selected, it's kind of telling Power BI everything is selected. So that's why everything shows up. So for example, if I were to just select first name, only first name is here. So if you published this, you will get just first. If people just select first name, they'll get first name, they'll get last name, they'll get emails, they'll get phone, and notice how the order of the column is the order that they selected in. So I select the email first. That's why email came up first. Date of birth and sex. Now, this becomes very useful when you're trying to do a donor report. I actually created a donor report that's this, because from a donor report perspective, you potentially could be the versatility needs to be there where people may use that donor report for many different purposes. So for example, you could have a dynamic column selection for a lot of different things, such as address, addressee, salutation, address line, city, state, STIP, country, and various different pieces of information such as inactive, diseased. And sometimes you don't want to show all of them in this table visualization right off the bat, because if you have 20 columns, obviously it becomes very difficult, and nothing, you'll have to be scrolling left and right all the time to see what you want. So from a user experience perspective, this will be helpful for them to be able to select, okay, I only want, this is not for mailing purposes, so I don't want to select address information. So address line, city, state, SIP, those can be gone from my list and they will no longer show up in the table. However, if it's more for a mailing list situation, then you can definitely put in address information, but you may want to ignore phone numbers, email, and then you can get rid of those. And now when they export, it's only going to export the columns that has been selected to show. And that will be useful. And the other thing is, you could also have more than one of these. So it makes it even easier. For example, if you have one that is for, that calls it biographical information selection, and then maybe you have another one that is for address information selection. And from that perspective, then you can easily just have everything checked off in the address when you're doing mailing. So that will be the a very practical use of being able to select different columns. Now, another thing, I can't show it here, but not that I can't, I cannot because of the relationship problem that I'm not able to fix now due to my network connection. It's not going to load fast enough. But you could do the same thing we did for the giving information. You could do here as well. It's not going to show just like before. But for example, this here, we can make once again. Let me just change that to what we had before. So this would be year, today, and then we'll have year, today, -1. Okay. So basically what you could do here is the same thing. I can just take this, I copy it, because again, it's the same mechanism, right? I can put it in here. Again, the order here doesn't matter too much. It probably is not gonna feel too badly if you use the same number, but I'm gonna just keep it going. 1 0 2 7. So now what you get is you get an error. 1 second. Always happens when I'm probably missing a parenthesis property somewhere. Oh yeah, why did it have that? I copied it wrong. Okay. All right, so we can put it in here. So now you can see from the dynamic column selection that we can also dynamically select 2023 giving, 2024 giving. Now, of course, again, I'm going to disclaimer this, that because of my data model situation that it's not showing any data, but when it does have data, you'll be able to select, okay, maybe someone don't want to see 10 years of giving, but someone may want to see 10 years of giving. For example, like your plan giving officer, they may want to see 10 years of giving so that they can see a trend of someone giving every single year for the past 10 years. Then this is good for them. But for general fundraiser, they may not want to see 10 years of giving. They may just want to see 5, 4, or even just 2 years of giving. And they'll be able to select how many columns, how many years of giving they wanted to do in this dynamic column selection. And it'll be more flexible for different people. So you do not have to build more Power BIs for different group of people. Okay, that concludes my sharing. So I'm going to stop sharing. And let's come back to here. Okay, good. So yes, hopefully this gives you a little bit of a something to play around, test around. I think dynamic column selection is particularly useful for something like a Power BI of donor reports, gift reports, pledge reports, for example. Anything that you want to display a list of information, and then that list of information may have varying different number of columns of field that certain group may want to see more of, certain group may want to see less of. And then you can use this dynamic column selection to configure your table to be usable by multiple groups of people. So that's all the sharing. Thank you so much for being here. Any questions?
We don't have any. There was some just discussion around the Power BI user group. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? I know that you're involved in it.
Okay, yes, that's actually a Power BI user group and a Power Automate user group that meets on a monthly basis. You can go to the community and then go into the Sky Developer channel, and then under the event, there's an event tab that if you go into, you'll be able to see like the date and time of when it happens, and then you can go ahead and join there. So basically, these user group will three things really happen in these groups. One is news and announcements. So any of the latest news around Sky API and developer stuff is going to be introduced there first. Anything that can be shared, of course. They're not going to show anything that's not supposed to go on the street yet. But if it can be broadcasted, told, it will be told to that group first. As far as I know, that's what's happening. Number two is to showcase any, because it is a community user group, so it's to showcase any new projects, any interesting project that someone may have done, and then go from there to show what others, to show to other what could be done, and then maybe mimic some of that work. And then the third is troubleshooting. So if you have problem doing some of your Power BI, you're stuck with a DAX, you're stuck with a visual that's not doing what you wanted to do, you're doing Power Automate and then something just doesn't work, keep on failing for you, then you want to go to these user group and bring your problem with you. And there will be experts there. Well, there are people that have done it before, and they'll be able to help you with some of these situations. And we try to help you in that user group to fix it right then and there, with you sharing your screen and then helping you do the troubleshooting. And then hopefully by the end of the call, you have a working Power BI or working Power Automate flow. And then yeah, it's a pretty good opportunity for you, for anyone that's doing any Power BI and Power Automate work, to join these user group.
That's great. Thank you, Alex. And we actually do have some questions. So let me read a couple of them. So Christine asks, is it possible to have years automatically selected as they are populated with data?
Yes, you can have them automatic. So basically in the dynamic column selection, you could have selected what you want to show by default. You could show everything, or you can show maybe just 2 or 3 of the information. So let's say that you coded 10 years of giving in there. You could have just selected this year and last year, and you'll only show this year and last year. As you save and publish to the Power BI service, the Power BI will always only show what you published it. Now, every user then, as they go there, it will only show 2 years, but they can then select more years, 10 years, 5 years, 8 years, and then go from there. But it will always have a default, and that default columns will be what you as the developer saved and published it.
Okay, thank you. Tori Wright asks, would you have to pre-create each year of giving to make it selectable, or is there a way to make the giving by year measure itself more dynamic?
Yes. So basically, the way from the very beginning when I was demoing, you don't actually have to create every year's giving as a measure. You can create one measure which is called giving. However, in order for that to actually show multiple years of giving, you have to use a matrix, and a matrix with the column trying to columnize the giving by year. Then you can do, like I was showing initially, you can do 2021, 2022, 2023 giving, and that will show. And then you could have a slicer that is that allows you to select the year. So you could do 2020, you could do 2021 to 2024, and then you get the columns of 21, 2, 3, 4, for example. But there's a drawback in that. So for example, so the drawback here is you have a range. It's a range. So 2021 to 2024. If there is a situation where you want 2021, 2024, and that's it, then you have to have each individual year measure coded, and then use dynamic column for you to select the multiple year and just specifically which year they want to see. So there is a situation you could do it. Like I said, Power BI, there's more than one way to achieve a single goal, and you could do it that way, but there are some drawbacks depending on your specific scenario as to what you're trying to do.
Awesome. All right. We are going to, if you guys have any more questions, feel free to put them in chat. I'm going to go ahead and launch the survey. Please do take a couple minutes, or just not even a couple minutes, a couple seconds, actually. It's only 4 questions, and we really appreciate the feedback. It helps us provide a better, experience. It helps Alex do a better job for his next 3 sessions. I did put those in the chat, and I hope that you guys can check them out, because Alex is always a great speaker and brings some really good things to everybody.
Right. All right. Thank you very much for everyone for your time, and hope you got something out of this session, and play around with Power BI, and we'll go from there. Take care, all.
Thank you all. Hope you have a great rest of the conference. Have a great day.